I live alone. No upstairs. No attic. No shared walls. Just me, and the quiet I chose. Every night, the same routine. Doors locked. Windows sealed. Lights out by midnight. Silence settles in layers, you can feel it if you pay attention. The kind of silence that presses gently against your ears until your own breathing starts to sound too loud. And then there's the clock. I don't even keep it near me, but somehow I always know when it's 2:17 a.m. It's like my body listens for it. That's when it started. At first, it was so faint I thought it came from inside my head. A soft, measured sound. One step, then another. Slow. Even. Deliberate. Footsteps. Right above me. I froze for the first time. I remember holding my breath, waiting for it to stop. Waiting for my mind to correct itself. Because there is nothing above me. No crawl space. No storage. Just solid ceiling and roofing. I checked when I moved in. I made sure. But the sound didn't correct itself. It continued. Footsteps. Crossing from one side of the ceiling to the other. Not rushing and not wandering. It knew exactly where it was going. And then, silence again. No creak. No settling. No explanation. Just gone. The next night, I stayed awake. 2:16 a.m., nothing. 2:17 a.m. It came back. Louder this time. Closer. Footsteps. Right above where I was lying. I remember staring at the ceiling, trying to trace it, trying to match the rhythm to something logical. Pipes. Wood expansion. Maybe an animal. Something small, trapped, moving in patterns my brain could mistake for steps. That's what I told myself. Something small. Because it had to be. Because anything else wouldn't make sense. But then it stopped again. Exactly like before. Mid-stride. No fading. No transition. Just absence. Like whatever was there knew I was listening. So I did what anyone would do. I checked. I turned on every light in the house. I grabbed a chair, climbed up, and pressed my ear to the ceiling. Nothing. Not even the echo of movement. Just solid, unmoving silence. The kind of silence that feels aware. I went outside. I walked around the entire house. Looked up at the roof. No openings. No access. No sign that anything could even get in. And yet, at 2:17 a.m., every single night since, someone or something walks directly over my head. Footsteps. And here's the part one haven't been able to explain. 3 nights ago, I started recording it. I set my phone beside me right before 2:17. I stayed completely still. The sound came right on time. Clear as ever. Footsteps. But when I played it back, there were no footsteps. Just me. Breathing. And something else. Very faint. So faint I almost missed it. A second set of breaths. Smaller. Closer. Not above me. Not outside. But somewhere inside the room. Listening. At the same time, I was. It's a one-floor place. Always has been. I didn't just assume that, I confirmed it before I ever signed anything. When I moved in, about 6 months ago, I walked the entire property with the landlord. No upper level. No attic access. No hidden crawl space tucked away behind some panel, just a flat roof sitting directly above the ceiling. Simple layout, too. You walk in through the front door and you're already in the living room. To the left, a short hallway, bedroom at the end, bathroom halfway down. To the right, a small kitchen. That's it. No extra corners. No dead space. Nowhere for anything to move around without being seen or heard. I even sketched it out one night, trying to make sense of things. A rectangle. 4 main sections. Every wall was accounted for. Every inch, explainable. And the area around it? Quiet. The kind of quiet people look for when they want to get away from everything. No traffic outside at night. No neighbors close enough for sound to carry. After midnight, it feels like the whole place is sealed off from the world. Which is why the footsteps don't make sense. There's physically nowhere for them to come from. I went through every explanation I could think of. Pipes don't run above the ceiling, everything is embedded in the walls. The roof is too low and too solid for anything to move inside it. And even if something small got in, it wouldn't walk like that. It wouldn't pace. It wouldn't stop, exactly where I'm lying. After I listened to that recording, the one that only captured my breathing, I started paying attention to things I'd ignored before. Little details. Like how the sound never echoes. It's always direct. Precise. As if whatever is making it is in the room with me, just choosing to sound like it's above. And then I noticed something else. The timing isn't just consistent, it's exact. 2:17 a.m. Every night. Not 2:16. Not 2:18. Exactly 2:17. I checked my phone against other clocks. Against the microwave. Even against an online time server. It's always the same. Down to the second. That kind of consistency doesn't feel random. It feels scheduled. So a few nights ago, I changed something. Instead of lying in bed and waiting, I moved. At 2:16, I left the bedroom and stood in the hallway. 2:17 came. And the footsteps followed. Right above me. Same pace. Same rhythm. Footsteps. Crossing slowly overhead, mapping my position so I could feel where I was standing. That's when the layout I drew earlier stopped making sense to me. Because according to that sketch, according to everything I know about this house, there is no above the hallway. There is no above the bedroom. There is no space up there at all. And yet, whatever this is, it knows exactly where I am. Every time. My nights are predictable in the best way. I get home, lock the door, and maybe put something on in the background while I eat. Nothing loud, just enough to keep the silence from feeling too heavy. By midnight, everything's off. Lights, TV, everything. I like the dark. It makes the space feel smaller, manageable. That first night, it was no different. I remember lying there, half awake, in that in-between state where your thoughts don't fully make sense anymore. The room was completely still. No wind outside. No distant cars. Just quiet. And then I heard something. Soft. So soft I almost ignored it. A light tap, followed by another. Footsteps. I didn't move. I didn't even open my eyes at first. My brain tried to place it somewhere familiar. Rain, maybe. The beginning of it. Or pipes adjusting, shifting slightly as the temperature dropped. At first, I thought it was rain, or pipes, or the house settling. That made sense to me. It had to. The house was older. Old houses make sounds. Everyone says that. So I stayed still, waiting for it to continue. But it didn't. Just those two faint, almost careful steps. And then nothing. No follow-up. No pattern. Just silence again, as it had never happened. I eventually fell asleep without thinking much of it. If anything, I remember being more annoyed than concerned. Just another house noise, I told myself. Something explainable. The next night, it came back. At the same time, or close enough that I didn't question it at first. But this time, I was awake. Fully awake. And I heard it clearly. Footsteps. A little heavier than before. Still controlled. Still slow. I opened my eyes immediately, staring straight at the ceiling as I could somehow catch it in the act. Nothing. Just the same flat, unmoving surface. But the sound was there. And it didn't feel random. It didn't sound random, it sounded like pacing. That's what stayed with me. It wasn't scattered or uneven like something loose or broken. It had intention. Direction. A start point and an end. I sat up that night, listening harder than I probably should have. Waiting for more. But just like before, it stopped. Midway through whatever path it was taking. The silence that followed felt different this time. Heavier. Like the house was waiting for me to react. I didn't sleep much after that. The next day, I did what anyone would do, I looked it up. Common house noises. Thermal expansion. Animals on the roofs. Even though I knew there was no space up there, I still checked. Rats, squirrels, birds, anything that could explain footsteps. And there were explanations. Plenty of them. But none of them sounded like what I heard. Too fast. Too erratic. Too chaotic. This was steady. Measured. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. Old house. Nighttime. Imagination fills in gaps. By the time evening came around again, I'd already decided it wasn't worth worrying about. I went through my routine like normal. Locked doors. Turned off the lights. Lay down. Waited. I didn't tell myself I was waiting, but I was. And right on cue. Footsteps. Closer this time. Clear enough that I felt it more than heard it. And that's when something shifted. Because now it wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a pattern. After the third night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It kept happening. Not constantly. Not throughout the night. Just once. Between 2 and 3 a.m. Always within that window. Always the same slow, deliberate movement across the ceiling. Footsteps. Then silence. Every single time. By the fourth night, I stopped trying to sleep through it. I started tracking it. Checking the time. Noticing the exact moment it began. 2:17. Again. And again. And again. That's when it stopped feeling like a coincidence. And started feeling like something timed. But the part that really got to me. The part one can't shake. It was something I only noticed after I changed one small detail. One night, I left the lamp on. Not bright, just enough to fill the room with a low, steady glow. I lay there like usual, watching the minutes pass. 2:16. 2:17. Nothing. No footsteps. No sound. Just silence. I stayed there for a long time, waiting for it to start late. It never did. So the next night, I tried again. Same setup. Lamp on. 2:17 came. Nothing. That's when I felt it for the first time. That quiet realization, settling in. So I tested it. I reached over and turned the light off. The room dropped into darkness instantly. And within seconds, footsteps. Right above me. Sharp. Immediate. Like it had been waiting. That's when I noticed, it only happened when I turned off the lights. After that, it wasn't just fear anymore. It was an expectation. Every night became a countdown. Not if it would happen, but when. And worse, part of me started feeling like whatever was making those footsteps, I was waiting too. After that, I stopped pretending it was background noise. I started listening. Not passively, not half asleep, but intentionally. Every night became an experiment. Lights off at the same time. Same position in bed. Same stillness. I didn't want to interfere with it, I wanted to understand it. 2:17. Footsteps. But this time, I didn't just hear it. I followed it. The first thing I realized was something I hadn't fully processed before. It wasn't just above me, it was moving from room to room. I could map it. From the bedroom ceiling, across the hallway, into the living room. The spacing of the steps stayed consistent, but the position shifted. Like it was walking a route. A familiar one. Back and forth. Not wandering. Repeating. I tested something one night. As the steps moved over the hallway, I slowly sat up in bed. The moment I did. Silence. Instant. Like a switch had been flipped. I stayed still, listening, waiting for it to continue. Nothing. So I lowered myself back down, slowly, carefully, until my head touched the pillow again. A few seconds passed. Then, footsteps. Right where it had left off. That's when it stopped feeling like a coincidence. Because it wasn't just happening around me anymore. It was reacting to me. I tried it again the next night. Same result. Sit up, silence. Lie down. It continues. Not louder. Not faster. Just aware. Like it preferred me still. Like it needed me to stay in place. And once that thought settled in, sleep became something else entirely. I wasn't resting anymore. I was waiting. By then, I needed something real to hold on to. Something physical. So I checked the roof. In daylight, everything looked smaller. Less threatening. Easier to explain. I brought a ladder around the side of the house and climbed up. Flat surface. Solid. No weak spots, no openings. No vents big enough for anything to get through, let alone move around in. I walked across it slowly, testing each step. Nothing echoed the way it did at night. Nothing even came close. Still. I checked everything twice. Then I went back inside and looked again at the ceiling. Same as always. Unbroken. Unchanged. So I contacted the landlord. Kept it casual at first. Asked about the structure and the history of the place. Renovations, repairs, anything that might explain hidden spaces. He told me the same thing I already knew. No attic. No crawl space. No modifications. It's always been like that. But then, right before ending the call, he paused. Just for a second. And then he said something I didn't expect. The landlord said something strange. You're not the first person to mention sounds. I didn't respond right away. I just waited. He didn't elaborate. Didn't offer details. Just repeated that the house was structurally sound and that older buildings sometimes carry noise in unusual ways. Then he changed the subject. Wrapped up the call quickly after that. I tried reaching out to the previous tenant, found a name through an old delivery label that hadn't been fully removed from the mailbox. No response. But that one sentence stayed with me. Not the first. Which means someone else heard it. And still left. That's when the house started to feel different during the day too. Not louder. Just less empty than I thought. I needed proof. Something outside of my own perception. Because at that point, it was too consistent to ignore, but too strange to explain. So I set up my phone. Propped it up on the nightstand, microphone facing the ceiling. I made sure it had enough storage, enough battery, everything. Hit record at 2:10 a.m. Then I did something different. I left the room. Sat in the living room instead, lights off, just waiting. 2:17 came and went. And for the first time since this started, I didn't hear anything. No footsteps. No movement. Just silence. I remember feeling relieved. Almost. Like maybe it was tied to me being in the room after all. Maybe it needed proximity. Maybe leaving disrupted whatever pattern I'd been noticing. That thought stayed with me as I eventually fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, I went back to the bedroom, picked up my phone, and played the recording. At first, nothing. Just low static. The faint hum of the room. Then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., footsteps. Clear. Closer than I had ever heard it before. Not muffled. Not distant. Directly above the phone. I froze. Because I hadn't been in that room. There was no reason for it to happen. But it did. And then I heard something else. Subtle. Layered beneath the steps. A slight, dragging sound. Not with every step. Just occasionally. Like something wasn't lifting fully off the surface as it moved. I replayed that part over and over again. Each time I notice it more. Footsteps. Drag. And the spacing between them. It wasn't random. It was consistent enough to feel deliberate. But uneven enough to feel wrong. Like whatever was moving. I was trying to walk normally. And failing, just slightly. That was the moment everything shifted again. Because now, it wasn't just in my head. It was recorded. Documented. Real. And whatever it was, it had no problem moving. Even when I wasn't there to hear it. After the recording, everything changed. Before, it felt like I was observing something. Now, it felt like something was observing me. The pattern didn't disappear, but it evolved. The pacing stopped being consistent. The route it followed every night broke. It stopped wandering and started reacting to me. The first time I noticed it, I was standing in the kitchen. Lights off. Just waiting, like I had been doing for nights. 2:17. Footsteps. It started above the living room. I stayed still. The steps continued, slowly crossing toward the hallway. Then I moved. Just one step back. And the sound stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Mid-motion. Like it had been interrupted. I froze. Waited. Nothing. So I took another step, this time forward. And above me. Footsteps. It resumed. Not where it had been. Where I was. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just aware of me lying down. It knew where I was, even when I moved. After that, I started testing it. Carefully. I'd shift positions in bed, slightly to the left, slightly to the right. Each time, the steps are adjusted. Following. Aligning. Staying overhead. One night, I closed the bedroom door before turning off the lights. When 2:17 came, the footsteps didn't start immediately. There was a delay. A long one. Then. Footsteps. Right outside the door. Not moving across the ceiling. Just there. Paused. Waiting. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. Eventually, it resumed, but slower than before. More deliberate. Like it had lost interest, or decided something. That was the moment the fear changed. It wasn't about hearing something anymore. It was about being tracked. Measured. Learned. And whatever this was, it was getting better at it. The next night, I didn't follow my routine. I stayed in bed. Didn't move. Didn't test anything. I just waited. 2:17. Footsteps. Only one. Not two. Just one. And then, nothing. I felt it immediately. That silence wasn't empty. It was focused. I kept my eyes on the ceiling, barely breathing, waiting for the next sound. And then, it stopped, directly above my bed. I knew it without needing to hear it again. The position. The weight of it. The way the air felt, different. Like something was settled there. Right above me. Watching. Then. Footsteps. Heavier than before. Slower. Closer together. Not crossing the room anymore. Just shifting, slightly, in place. Footsteps. Each one pressing down harder, as if it was testing the surface between us. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because something about it felt final. Like any reaction from me would change what happened next. The steps continued. Slower. More deliberate. Then they stopped again. Right above my head. A long pause followed. Long enough that I almost convinced myself it was over. Maybe it will fade like before. But instead, there was a new sound. Soft. Sharp. A single. Knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. But unmistakable. Directly above me. On the ceiling. From something that shouldn't be there. I felt it more than I heard it. A small, precise impact. Like something solid, making contact. I stayed completely still. Heart racing, waiting for anything else. Another knock. Another step. Anything. But nothing came. Just silence again. Heavy. Unmoving. And somehow worse than before. Because now, it wasn't just moving around me. It had acknowledged me directly. And whatever was above that ceiling had just made it clear. It knew exactly where I was. I didn't sleep after the knock. I stayed there, completely still, staring at the ceiling like it might give something away. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time felt stretched. Unreliable. And then a sudden, violent sound broke through the silence. A heavy thud. Sharp. Solid. Close. I flinched without meaning to. It sounded like something dropped or landed. Not a step. Not a shift. Something with weight. Something that hadn't just been walking, but had come down harder than before. And then came a new sound. Subtle at first. A low, uneven movement. Not footsteps. Not pacing. Something dragging, longer this time, less controlled. Like whatever was up there had changed position completely. I felt my focus shift without deciding to. Up until that moment, I had been looking at the ceiling, waiting for something to show itself. But now, something about the sound felt different. Off. Misplaced. So I stopped looking up and started listening properly. Not just to where it was, but how it moved. The direction. The depth. The way the sound traveled. Because it wasn't echoing the way it should if it were above the roof. It wasn't distant. It wasn't separated. It was contained. Closer than that. Much closer. And as that realization started forming, my chest tightened. Because the sound wasn't spreading outward. It was pressing downward. Into the room. Through the ceiling. Like there was less distance than I had believed this entire time. The dragging came again. Slower. Heavier. Right over me. And I understood something in that moment that I hadn't allowed myself to think before. I stopped looking up. And started listening properly. Because the sound didn't belong to the roof. It didn't belong to anything outside the house. It belonged inside the structure. Inside the space, I had already convinced myself it didn't exist. My eyes stayed locked on the ceiling, but I wasn't expecting to see anything anymore. I was trying to hear the truth instead. And it was there. Clear now. Undeniable. It wasn't above me. The thought landed before I could stop it. Heavy. Final. The dragging sound shifted again, followed by a slow, deliberate movement that no longer sounded like footsteps at all. More like repositioning. Adjusting. As if whatever was there, it was closer to the surface than before. My throat went dry. Because once that idea takes hold, everything else starts to rearrange itself around it. The pattern. The timing. The way it followed me. The way it stopped when I moved. The knock. All of it pointed to something I had been avoiding from the beginning. A space I had already ruled out. A space I knew wasn't there. But the sound didn't care what I knew. It kept moving. Slow. Heavy. Right above me. No. Not above. Not anymore. It was between the ceiling and the roof. And the worst part. The part that settled in right after that realization. How little space that actually leaves. Because if something is moving in there, if something is pacing, dragging, shifting its weight, then it isn't something small. It isn't something light. And it definitely isn't something that accidentally found its way in. It's something that fits. Barely. Something that knows the limits of that space. Because I've been using it. For a long time. Another slow drag came from directly overhead. Closer than any sound before it. And this time, there was no mistaking it. Whatever was in that space had just moved. Right up against the ceiling. Directly above my face. I didn't move for a long time after that. Not because I thought it would stop. But because I knew it wouldn't. Once you hear something that clearly, that close, there's no going back to guessing. There's only acceptance. So the next day, I did something I hadn't done before. I stopped trusting what I'd been told. I started measuring. Every wall. Every corner. Every line of that layout I had drawn so confidently before. Room by room. Step by step.